Kobayashi!
What is up, YouTube? This is Anashi with a very special Weiss Schwarz video. I was given a very special gift, paid out of pocket by a fellow tuber and a close online friend, Shadow Knight 1105, essentially making him the video's sponsor. You may recognize him from the Nameless Voices podcast as Yosh, and if any of his friends and fans are watching, you may recognize me as the guy that helps edit his playthrough videos. Anyways, Yosh went out of his way to get me a gift of this Kobayashi Dragon Maid trial deck, and all he asked for in exchange was a basic rundown of what it comes with and how to play it. See, he's new-ish to Weiss Schwarz, but when he found out Kobayashi was going to be a thing in it, he dove headfirst into the game, kind of like how I did with Gurren Lagann years ago. Funny story, we did have a little difficulty coordinating this video when the idea came up. See, Yosh ordered the decks from a site I never heard of called lumiousinc.com, and he ordered a few of them, but they were all missing a single card, making them incomplete trial decks. I went to this Weiss Schwarz server I frequent and asked to see if it was some kind of known factory error. And the seller himself was actually in the server, found out what happened, and immediately looked into it. It turns out Yosh accidentally got sent some pre-open trial decks the seller normally uses either on streams or to resell for play sets. When he found out, he sent us replacements on the next mailing day, no questions asked. So thank you Lumious Inc. for having such top-notch quality service. So for the first time ever, I'll be attempting a guide and walkthrough of this Kobayashi trial deck. So let's get started. Starting with the level 0 cards, we have a pair of Blissful Times Kobayashi, a dual-purpose support card. It gives all other humans and dragons 500 power, and you can put it to rest and pay 2 stock to move any human or dragon from waiting room to hand. We have a pair of Cheering for Love Kana, a front row piece with its own recovery ability. When you play her from hand, she lets you pay a stock and discard a card to move any human or dragon from waiting room to hand, and gives one human or dragon on your stage 1,000 power for the turn, including herself. We have a playset of heart-pounding part-time job Iruru, a chance resource gatherer. It gives all humans and dragons 500 power, but only during your turn, and she has a brainstorm ability that reveals and sends the top 5 cards of your deck to the waiting room, and you draw 1 card for every climax among those 5 cards you revealed. We have 3 Peaceful Daily Life Kobayashi, which directly tandems with another card in 2 distinct ways. She has a bond ability, which means when she's played from hand, you can discard a card to move one first time using a computer Elma from waiting room to hand. And while face up, she also gives Elma 500 power and a bonus ability. If the opponent front attacks another character, Elma can send herself from the stage to the waiting room to boost that character being attacked by 1500 power for the turn. We have a pair of Poolside Temptation Toru, and yeah, that name is scary accurate. She gives all your opponent's characters an Encore 2 bonus, which is to balance her unusually large stat line. And when the opponent starts their attack phase, she can move to the front and center position of the stage if it happens to be open. And we have a playset of Priestess of the Sea Elma, a straightforward frontline piece. When you play her, if you have another human or dragon, she gains 2,000 power for the turn. Moving into the level 1 cards, we have a pair of Eating Off the Ground Kana, a frontline piece to support your other frontline pieces. When she attacks, she gives another character you control 2,500 power for the turn. We have a pair of First Time Using a Computer Elma, the piece that tandems with Peaceful Daily Life Kobayashi. She doesn't have an effect of her own, but as mentioned before, that Kobayashi puts her into your hand, gives her a power boost, and allows her to sacrifice herself to strengthen another character being attacked, turning her into an offensive and defensive flex piece. We have a pair of For the Sake of Friends Kobayashi, a counter card with a similar purpose to Elma's gifted effect. When your character is being front attacked, you can pay a stock and send her from your hand to your waiting room to give that character being attacked 2,500 power for the turn. We have a pair of High Five of Trust, an event designed to set up your Climax combos. You send a character on stage to the waiting room and add any Climax in your deck to your hand. We have a pair of Onset of Puberty Iruru, a frontline piece to prepare for your more expensive plays. When you play her and have another human or dragon out, she gains 4,000 power for the turn. And if you play her when you have 4 or more other humans or dragons, you can put a human or dragon in your waiting room into your stock. And we have a playset of self-proclaimed Best Maid Toru, your level 1 combo piece. She gains 2,000 power during your turn if you control only humans and dragons, and she has a Climax combo where if she reverses a character in battle, she lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal and move a human or dragon among them to hand, send the rest to the waiting room, and give any other character 2,000 power for the turn, which is especially useful if you happen to control 2 or more of her. Next is the level 2 cards. We have a pair of Harmony Faction Elma, a frontline character with powerful removal. During the turn you play her, she gains 1,000 power for every human or dragon on your stage, including herself. And if she reverses a character in battle, she moves that character into the memory instead of the waiting room. We have a pair of Modeling Lukua, and yeah, that art speaks volumes. She's a back row piece that gives characters in front of her 500 power times their level, and you can rest her to give another character a bonus ability of, when it reverses a character in battle, you can look at the top card of the deck and either leave it there or send it to the waiting room. We have a pair of Participating Fafnir, a frontline piece that benefits from your opponent's board state. It gets 2,000 power for each card in the opponent's backstage, and at the start of the Encore step, if nothing else is at rest in your front row, you can pay 1 stock to Encore this card instead of the usual 3. Then is the level 3 cards. We have a pair of a Maid Just For You Toru, a healer and light game pusher. When you play her, she moves the top card of your club to your waiting room, and when she reverses a character in battle, you can discard 1 and pay a stock to deal an extra point of damage. And we have a pair of Peeking Back in Japanese Closed Kana, a board clearer and heavy game pusher. At the start of the attack phase on the turn you play her, you can send all of the characters on both sides of the stage into the waiting room except her. If you do this successfully, and if her attack damage is cancelled, you can deal 3 more damage for free. And when she actually declares her attack, you can discard 2 cards to deal 1 more point of damage. And finally, we have the Climax cards. First is a pair of Busy Shopping. During the turn you play it from hand, all characters you control gain 1,000 power and 1 soul, and if it's revealed for an attack check, you can put the top card of your deck into your stock. Next is a playset of Making the Best Memories. During the turn you play it from hand, all characters you control gain 1,000 power and a soul. And if it's revealed during an attack check, you can pick any character in your waiting room with a soul trigger icon and either put it in your hand or your stock. Finally is a pair of the Scenery Together With You. During the turn you play it from hand, all characters you control gain 2 soul, and if it's revealed during an attack check, the attacker gains 2 soul for the turn. And that is the trial deck. As a whole, the trial deck is fairly well-rounded for beginners. It has plenty of offensive options, some good supporters, serviceable resource gatherers, and decent recovery options, as well as a couple of different ways that it can push for game. But it can definitely use some improvements when you're ready to do so. Trial decks by definition are to get you started into the game and can function perfectly well, but they are not what most players would call optimally built. In this deck's case, it could use better resource gatherers, better utility options, and maybe a secondary method of pushing for game. I did a little research and found a few recommendations to improve the deck too, most of which are fairly budget, as well as an option or two that I just think is kinda cool. To start with, improving resource options can be handled by Beachside Invitation Kana, who lets you discard and pay a stock to search a human or dragon directly from deck to hand. And she gives another character in the front and center of your stage an extra soul while she's on stage, which is always beneficial. Poolside Temptation Toru can actually go up to 4 copies since it's a fantastic card at the start of the game, and a Maid Just For You Toru can go to 3 or 4 since she heals you and does small instances of damage as an endgame. Now to be a little more tactical, I would recommend you trade those for the Sake of Friends Kobayashi for the Particular Person Kobayashi. This counter offers the same bonus, but at a level later, and if you use its counter ability, it also gives you the option to shuffle your waiting room back into the deck by paying 2 stock. Now for recovery options, there's Awakening Kana, who has a Brainstorm that lets you recover characters from the waiting room to the hand. And she lets you look at the top card of the deck when you play her, then you can either put it on top or send it to the waiting room. And if you wanted to do a level 3 Climax combo, you could easily add Perfect Maid Toru. She has an identical heal effect to a Maid Just For You Toru, and has a combo that lets you either deal 1 point of damage for free, or pay 2 stock and discard 1 to deal any amount of damage you want as long as it's more than 0. Plus, since her Climax combo requires another choice Climax, that would make this into an 8 choice build, giving it even more chances at recovery and resource. But if you wanted to commit to a slightly higher price tag, you could go for Trusting Relations with Dragons Kobayashi over the Kana. See, they have the same Brainstorm recovery, but Kobayashi has a second effect to draw and discard 1 card instead if you have a board full of humans and dragons. She also has a third effect that when she is on stage with Wings of Love Toru, she gives 1,000 power to all your characters. At the same time, Toru gives 1,000 power to any attacking human or dragon, and if she has any markers under her, she can give those attackers additional soul based on the number of markers under her. And she sets up this marker-based bonus through her Climax combo, which reveals the top 3 cards of the deck, adds up to 3 humans or dragons among them to the hand, and puts the top card of the deck under her as a marker. And if you wanted to go even further with this setup, there's a card called Bridging Humans and Dragons Toru and Kobayashi. It can be played at level 2 if you have 4 other humans or dragons on stage. It gains 1,000 power when there are 2 or more humans or dragons on stage, meaning it's still valuable at level 3. And if you have Trusting in hand when you play her, you either get to deal a damage or heal a damage. But that is just one small group of cards out of the many options you have. Every set in this game has a minimum of 100 different playable cards, and all of which are at your fingertips based on what waifus you want to play. I thank you for watching this new kind of video. I hope this explanation was everything you asked for, and if anyone out there has any suggestions for Yosh to help him get started, feel free to let us know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.